Hello, welcome to my channel. Probably you're wondering, what can I do to improve my English? In this video, I will cover the aspects of language learning that you might be doing wrong that I see every day with many students. And I'll answer the question, how long would it take me to learn English? How many hours would you recommend me to study every week? I will also share with you my personal experience learning English. So let's start. The very first mistake students make is that they don't listen to enough English. If you want to improve your speaking skills, listening is a must-do. If you want to improve your writing, then you have to read more. Jumping from topic to topic is also a really bad idea. Concentrate on one topic or one style, but don't jump until you get it down to a science. Focusing too much or too little on grammar would also affect your cognitive skills. Learning from textbooks is okay, but at the end of the day you want to have real conversations, and ignoring completely grammar is not convenient either. And the third is a very interesting psychological effect, the Dunning-Kruger effect. Research has found that most people are very poor at estimating their own abilities, and it has been found that in Western cultures in particular, people frequently overestimate their skills. Professor Dunning and his team administered 4 experiments testing participants' understanding of humor, grammar, and logic. They found that those who scored in the bottom 25% consistently assumed their performance was above average, and sometimes even in the top 40%. So what you have to do is to assess your level of English, where you stand, and then decide what will be the next step to take further. And the second would be not knowing how much effort you need to put into it. I get this question all the time. How long would it take me to learn English? I just want to be fluent, I just want to be confident. It depends on many factors. So the first one is your current level of English. If you already have a B1 or a B2 level, then to be fluent it wouldn't take you that long. The second is the level of English that you need. For some people, upper intermediate, which would be around a B2, would be enough. Which languages you already speak? If you speak French, Italian, Portuguese, and you are now learning English, it shouldn't be too difficult to make that transition. If you're living in an English-speaking country, it will be much easier. However, if you're living in a non-English speaking country, it might take you a little while, a little longer, although it's not impossible. This next factor is how hard you study and how much practice you put into it. And finally, how good you are at learning languages. As the example of the guy who speaks many languages, that person already knows the process and what it needs to be done for them to learn that new language. But if you are only having one language in your mother your mother tongue, then it's going to take you a little bit longer. I was hesitant to show this slide because 10 in 10 of the students I show this table don't come back to my classes. They freak out. But someone has to tell you the truth. These are the amount of hours you should study according to your level. Although there are shortcuts to this rule and everyone learns differently, and I would like to point out that this is not an exact science, and you could have a C1 or C2 understanding of grammar, but when you speak you still have problems communicating. So this is focused on fluency and speaking abilities. You might need to turn your passive vocabulary into active and put into practice what you already know. I have come across students who want to become fluent in 1 month and they have a A2 level. I can tell you that that is not going to happen, but yeah, there is always some exceptions. In my classes, I only speak English, which is my second language, and I only teach students to B1 students. That is when your level starts to take shape, although you are not quite there yet. The B2 level is when cool stuff really happens. You are not translating as much anymore, and you are getting some sort of traction. Regardless, I don't think it will be enough just to take English lessons with a teacher. It says here like numbers of hours of instruction. There is only so much you could learn and your brain can process in 1 hour with a teacher. It would be best if you complement that with your own story time. I wouldn't ask my students something I am not willing to do myself. This is my own experience taking my English from B1 to C1 level. And I'm just talking about my speaking skills. When I would take a placement test, I would get C1 or C2, but that is quite different from your speaking ability. Do you remember the 200 hours from level to level? Well, I was able to get over the hump with only 124 lessons in a year. As you might see here, one of the first lessons I took was in June 28, 2019, and the lesson 124 happened in July 9, 2020. But I complemented that with some study hours by myself, which was in average 2.38 hours, but I think that really was 2.5 hours a week because I took some vacations. So it was 8 hours a day watching movies, listening to podcasts, my cell phone, computer, any device that I had on my hands. It was in English, it was said in English, and that's what you want to do, to have as much exposure as you can with English. So once in a while I would check out vocabulary, translate, but and I started to think in English. So that's what you want to do when you are going from that level from B1 to C1. There is always a shortcut. If you multiply the amount of hours, this is the number that you get. 8 hours multiplied by 365. To put it realistically, not everybody has 8 hours a day to study English, so I would recommend you to follow this rule, the Pareto Principle, which is the 80-20 rule. This one maintains that 80% of outcomes come from 20% of causes. You might think of the 80-20 rule as simple cause and effect, but I personally believe that you could strike a nice balance if you apply this rule to language learning. So how would this work? This one also applies to other areas and fields in business and economics. You can apply it to the concept of wealth distribution, personal finance, spending habits. But here, if you take, let's say that you take 2 hours a week with a teacher, and then my recommendation is to study by yourself 8 hours. This is a week. This is what I did in a year. I studied 1825 hours by myself, and the rule would have indicated that I should have taken 456, but I think that I overcompensated with the hours that I studied by myself, so it was like a replacement. But coming back to the example, this put this into a yearly number. 104 hours a week would be the amount of 104 hours a year. uh, a week would be insane, and this will be a year multiplied by 4. So you want to calculate it by yourself. You just multiply it by 4, and then you get 416 hours in a year. So then again, I think that would definitely get you understand and help you take better decisions. So by following this, I didn't exactly follow this rule, but it definitely made me a better student, and I eventually started to use expressions that my teachers didn't understand. So yeah, maybe you can always, this is not an exact science again, and this is not a mathematical law, but this is something that you can do. Finally, some students tell me I want to speak like a native speaker. Well, the easiest way to do that is maybe to be born again, but that is just for science fiction books. And 10,000, the 10,000 hour rule, which comes from a book called Outliers, which I definitely recommend. He gives examples as to how many hours you should study to become really a master. So in the book, he shares examples um, from Bill Gates as well as the Beatles. So how many hours of practice Bill Gates had on computer programming, and how many hours would the Beatles rehearse every day. So, but I think that this 10,000 hour is the magic number of greatness. That's what he says. It's about mastering a skill, not only learning one. And come to think of it, you already master when it comes. You already mastered a language when it comes to language learning. You have mastered your first language, and when did that happen? Probably around the 10 years. Think back to the time when you started expressing yourself freely and confidently in your mother's tongue. How old were you? Around 9 or 10? And now what is really important is deliberate practice. Do not just mindlessly learn new words. Learn to use them in the field. Don't simply cram grammar, make sense of it. Stop estimating how long it's going to take, how much you really have for this, how many hours a week you have study. Just have to take the first step today. And okay, well, I will welcome you to my next video. I take suggestions, and I will also welcome you to my classes. So I hope to see you soon, and take care.